All right, so welcome to Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes. This is Josh,
Hey, it's Wes.
and we're here for the last studio album of Gary Stewart.
I'm a Texan.
I'm a Texan, released in 1993 on Hightone Records, and it was the last studio album by Gary. Again, it was produced by Roy Dea, and on the back of the CD states Gary Stewart was born in Kentucky and lives in Florida, but most every weekend night for many years, he has held court in dance halls and honky tonks all over Texas. Ask any of the tens of thousands of Gary Stewart fans in the Lone Star State, and they will most likely tell you if anyone can make the statement, I'm a Texan, it's Gary Stewart. So we've been talking about Jimmy McDonough's book, I'm from the Honky Tonks. And in it, he said Gary hated the album title, and he was indeed not a Texan. But on May 24th, 1994, the Texas governor, Ann Richards, made Gary an honorary Texan. And I agree, Wes. This album title cover, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, he's not a Texan. And we'll get to the song. It's not really about being proud about being a Texan or anything like that. It'd be more appropriate if Hank Hill had a country album to be called I'm a Texan, but it's the album is named what it is named.
Yeah, or many of the great Texans like Willie Nelson or George Jones. It's a interesting album title, especially for Gary's last, but it doesn't distract from the songs at least.
That's right. Well, and we should say too, yeah, I think you said last studio album. He had, I guess the last official release while Gary was alive was that live album. But this is the last actual studio album, right?
Correct. This was the last one. And it says in Jimmy's book, I'm a Texan, the third and final High Tone album, came out on October 15th, 1993. It featured only one song Gary had co written, and it was another inferior recreation of a fantastic unreleased demo from the distant past. It's true. The bulk of the recordings are half hearted covers, although the opening cut, a wild Bill Emerson song written with wife Jody, Come On In, has more swing than the rest and features a Rye inspired vocal from Gary. This would be Stewart's last studio album, and he went out with a whimper.
Yeah, I don't know that I feel it's a whimper, but when you think about it being his very last one and what he was capable of, um, it's just hard. I'm sure nobody at the time they were making this, Gary included, knew it would be his last studio record. But yeah. Yeah, so we've got some pretty interesting people on this album. I guess kind of the same crew, more or less, that we've had, plus a couple of notable additions.
Yeah, we got Biff Watson, Bill Hollett, and Dino Zimmerman on acoustic guitar. Donna Mercer did the art, which, despite the Texas flag and stuff, it's actually got some good pictures, I think.
Yeah.
Bass was Larry Paxton. Drums, we got Jerry Croon, Milton Sledge. Electric guitar, Reggie Young. Engineers were Fred Bogert, Joe Funderburk, and Tom Hitchcock. Fiddle, Hank Singer. Our old friend Charlie McCoy on harmonica. Tracy Nelson on harmony vocals. Keyboards, Fred Bogert. Music director, again, David Briggs. Photography, Andrew W. Long. Piano, David Briggs. Producer, Roy Day. Steel guitar was Paul Franklin and Steve Henson on steel guitar.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why the credits were arranged in kind of a strange way when I found them. And I don't know that the liner notes on the CD itself have them in that order too, because that's what it looked like I was looking at.
Yeah, and this was only on CD as well.
I figured as much. Yeah. No vinyl. I mean, we're kind of in that time where it's like all the 90s stuff. If it did get pressed on vinyl, you and I both know, then it's probably worth a fortune, but some stuff just wasn't being pressed.
Yeah, and there's a real cool photo of Gary on the, I don't know what part it is on the on the CD, but it's him sitting on like a almost looks like a church pew with his guitar, and it's a good photo. But it also says, just to read it, special thanks to Larry Slovin, Bruce Bromberg, Daryl Anderson, and the Hightone staff, and our buddy Bill Harris, and that was from Roy Day. And then this album is dedicated to Poncho, Mom and Dad, Shannon, Joseph, Nick and Nancy, Jack and Slick, Pat and Larry, Tanya, Dolores, Bill, all the Pickers, the Allman Brothers Band, and the memory of Joey. And that was from Gary Stewart.
Mm, that's a
Poncho,
good,
for people that don't know, was Mary Lou.
that's a sweet dedication.
Yeah. Um, but for sure, yeah, this was Gary's last studio album, last high tune. And it starts with the song Come On In, which, as Jimmy said, was written by Bill Emerson and Jody Emerson. And yeah, I think this is a great opening track for this album because, Roy and Gary, I felt like were great at really creating a good opening track. And the vibe and even the titles, it says, makes you want to come on in and settle in and hear the record. It sort of sets the theme for the record, I would say, as well.
Yeah, nobody here but me and the blues. I think that about says it really. Yeah, it's a blues rocker. It's kind of a simple song on its face. I don't know if it's like the deepest track ever cut, but I think Gary sings it well and it's really convincing. And yeah, it sets the stage for like a sort of a rollicking affair. Like this is definitely, even though there are some darker lyrics on the album. Overall, it's a very honky tonk record as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I'm curious when it was written from, since Bill Emerson wrote it, and I wonder if it was an older song because I can't find any trace of it being recorded before, but maybe it is out there. But yeah, I like the song. It's fun. It's a good start to the album. It gets you intrigued on what you're going to listen to.
I don't know that I would have guessed by this intro song that it's an album from 93 either, 94. I would have thought um maybe the 80s or something, but we'll get into sort of the sounds of this record.
Yeah, I feel like the first song kind of sounds like it could be from a lot of periods, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. A little timeless in that way, I suppose.
Which brings us to track two, and this is the title track, I'm a Texan. And again, written by Bill Emerson and Jody Emerson. And, this is a great song. Don't get me wrong here, but as we said, the album title is dumb as I'll get out. And the song fits, and I have no problem with it. I just don't fully understand the full leaning of that concept outside of maybe just having the song on here. It's a beautiful honky tonk waltz with Gary singing great on it. And it's got that beautiful dobro and instrumentation. And I think lyrically, the song could have been easily about Kentucky. And I don't really understand because Bill and Jody Emerson are also not Texan. So it doesn't quite make sense to me, but we have it.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that either. Some interesting lyrics. I'm hotter than hellfire and brimstone, and I'm meaner than the devil's best friend. Um, it's kind of a sad song, to be honest with you. I really like I guess that's the fiddle that kind of comes in on this one. Sounds pretty good. You pointed out the dobro. I just really enjoy the how pretty the song is, even if it has some depressing lyrics. But yeah, I don't understand the Texas connection myself. Like, I understand that, the title was supposed to be about people in Texas loving his music. And what was it we read that maybe it was in Jimmy's book that they would close all the honky tonks, maybe still to this day, to an empty glass. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, after this time and a little bit around this time, I think Gary mostly only played Texas. And I mean, he was huge there, but I don't think even he said it was dumb. I don't think he identified in that way at all. I just think that's where people really appreciate him. So I get that. And it makes sense to have this song. And I couldn't find any trace of it being played live, but I do agree. This song is great. It's a really awesome song. It's like a perfect country song, honestly.
Yeah, and it's really good for Gary. I mean, he just even though he didn't write it, he could have. It felt like a song that he would have maybe like lent some lyrics to, but that's just he just sings it so convincingly. Um, Yeah, it's just good. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that song other than like silly title for the song and the record, but great track.
Yeah, and lyrically, it's a great song. Besides the point,
Yeah, it's really well written. Any of these that are Bill Emerson and Jody Emerson tracks are um great lyrics.
I agree. That takes us to track three, Stomping Grounds, and this was written by Randy Albright and Jerry Saley. And I'd say this song's grown on me a lot. It's very catchy. The instrumentation wise, this album for the most part really fits Gary and in this time of his life. I think for the most part we moved past the 80s cheese, and I like the descriptive line about the snake skin, obviously talking about his boots, and now I'm stepping out softly through my old stomping grounds.
The snakeskin thing kept making me think of Wild at Heart.
Yeah, kind of the same. I got snakeskin boots too, so I related to it's like me going back to Lexington or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got Charlie. I assume this is Charlie McCoy on this one playing the harmonica. You know, I really dig this. It's another bluesy rocker, and I think the guitar works maybe a little simple, but got a little honky tonk piano kind of going on in the back, and yeah, it's just right. It's a song where you're thinking about your old stomping grounds, like you said. You'd be going back to Lexington. I don't know that I'd go back to my stomping grounds, Madisonville. I wouldn't be playing this song if I did, but it's yeah, I like Charlie on this a lot. I wish him and I think we talked about Charlie McCoy was also on Out of Hand, but I don't think he's been on any record since and up until this one, right?
Uh, I'm not positive. I think there was another one he played on, but I can't say for sure. But yeah, it's cool to see him back here on the song. He is great on the song. And this is another fun song. I like it a lot. I think this album does a great job of like stamping the time where it's at, where it doesn't sound super dated in any way, but you can tell it's a 90s country record, and it really bridges Gary's like honky tonk and blues gap, I think, really well.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really a shame as I think about this being the last studio album for Gary is just that I could easily have seen like another decade going by of him making albums like this and leaning more into this sound and it getting sort of better and better as it went on. Like this felt like this was his first dip into this. Like we got a little bit of that bluesy sound on the last record, but this one sort of leaned really into that concept, it felt like. And it's still country, but it's just got a great like bluesy tinge.
Yeah, I think he really would have done well because you got to think about early 90s this time. This is when, Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, a lot of these Travis Tritt guys were getting big with that kind of neo traditional country sound. And, even Brooks and Dunn had covered Gary. I think, yeah, if this continued, I think he would have had some big hits had he not been on Hightone, which, Hightone gave him the freedom to make what he wanted to make, but still, I'll give a little more context of why that probably didn't happen. But yeah, there's some good songs here. I don't think he went out with a whimper at all. And that takes us into track four, which is Hand Me Another. And we have a song written here by Mickey Newberry and Lee Fry. And that was pretty cool to see Mickey Newberry here. I love his songwriting. And, Chris Campion that put out this book by Jimmy that we worked with, he released some Mickey Newberry stuff on Drag City. And
Did he? I didn't realize that.
I listened to his version as I had not heard it to my recollection. And it's a similar production, actually, even though his, I'm pretty sure from the 70s and maybe earlier. And Gary's just has a little more of that 90s country polish, but it's not a bad song at all. Lyrically, it's beautiful. I think it's a really brilliant lyrical song. I think just the instrumentation and productions, I wouldn't say it's boring. It's just slightly not as interesting, but Gary's voice definitely carries it with the lyrics.
Yeah, hand me another and I'll swallow that mother, and I'll be as high as the sun ever rose. Hey, bartender, I sure ain't no winner. This is like it's like the Deacon blues of drinking songs. It's like about a loser out drinking. Not necessarily somebody who's like a loser in life, but somebody who's lost someone and is definitely down on their luck. It's a tough drinking song, is how I would classify this one. I actually quite like this one. Gary himself, I don't think he was drinking, when he was singing this, but it's funny because we talked about how, he has all these drinking songs, but that wasn't really necessarily his vice. But like, if you told me he was singing half drunk on this one, I'd kind of believe you. Like, it just sort of, he sells the character of this song.
Yeah, I actually don't know. This time, he probably was not in the best state of mind here, if I'm being honest. I don't know if he was drunk, but he was probably something.
Yeah, yeah, might have been. I mean, it kind of comes off that way, but it's a pretty interesting song, honestly. Like I uh, it's just got that darker tinge, and you're right, it's sort of got that 90s country polish too. I don't know that it's like the most interesting thing ever, but I do like that. I mean, that's a great hand me another and I'll swallow that mother is a really funny line to me, even though it's sad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely a really great Gary song here.
Yeah, he sells it. I will say I'm thinking about this a little bit more now, and I mean, not every song on this album, but this has to be up there with some of the albums that we've covered, the most drinking songs that are on it. A lot of these songs are drinking songs. So it's funny because I think the last one maybe was we said the first album we'd covered that didn't have a drinking song, and I guess they felt like they had to make up for it on the next one.
Yeah, and that takes us to track 5, which is Dragon Leather. And this is written by Bill Emerson and Jody Emerson again. And I think this song fits Gary big time. It's back, you're back to rocking honky tonkin song here. And this is one I never disagree and think that Gary should enunciate more, but here maybe just slightly because it does sound like he's saying drinking leather. And
Yeah.
it's a fun song though. I would have loved to heard this one live. And you ever had a Wildcat juice, Wes?
No, what's that, like a John Wall shot or something?
I don't know. It says there's somebody in here is drinking Wildcat juice. I can't say I've heard of that one.
I kind of figure it must be a moonshine or something, but
I just looked it up, and you're right. That which makes sense because aged in the woods, Wildcat juice. We're all Wildcats in Kentucky. If you're a true Kentuckian,
so now we got another, that feels like a Kentucky thing and not a Texan thing, but it is what it is. Yeah, it does. His singing is just a little interesting here. And again, it sounds kind of like he's singing after 5 or 6 tequila shots. Maybe it's a little bit cheesy, but yeah, we're not dragging shackles anymore. We're dragging leather.
well,
A
maybe he
little bit
had some
different.
Wildcat juice.
He might have,
He might
yeah.
have had that some of that bottle that Bob told us about with the peaches.
No, Lord. Yeah, they said what, drink that and lay down, right? That's the
If you eat the peach, you better lay down.
yeah, yeah. This sounds like a song that somebody who ate that peach is getting into.
It kind of does, honestly.
I mean, it's a good drinking song, I'll
Oh, I
say
love
that.
it. It's a great
Yeah.
song. Yeah, I love this song. Well, that takes us to track 6, which is It's True. And this was written by Carol Anderson, Mary Beth Anderson, and Gary Stewart. So some old names we've seen here before. And this is the only song on the record, as Jimmy was saying, that was written and co-written by Gary. And I thought it was kind of surprising, honestly. I unfortunately hate the production on this song. It sounds dated in a way I can't really place, and that's like some weird blues jazz. If Roy had produced this like a 60s song, which it has the feel of, it would have been great because Gary's voice is amazing on the song, but there's just something on the production that's just like almost sounds like a cheesy like 80s song that'd be in a TV show. Or I don't really. Did you feel the same on that? There was something off on.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it just made me sad that this is the only song that Gary even had a co-write on his last studio album. Given that, you know, from all the Gary albums we've talked about, more often than not, the songs he wrote are some of the best, if not the best on the records. And this one's just a little bit odd, and I would agree the production's kind of weird. I mean, it doesn't sound like stuff that would have been on the air in 1993 on the country radio shows. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but yeah, it was just a curious choice. And I guess, you gave that quote from Jimmy's book. It sounds like it was an old song that they decided to kind of pull into this from, from the past. And yeah, they probably should have just produced it like whenever Gary had written it, like whatever era that was, and it probably would have been better.
Yeah, because everything else works on the song, but the production or like instrumentation, just something it's not quite working for me. And yeah, I'm curious. I've never seen that demo come up. I wonder when he wrote it or if it will come out in some form or because it is a
Yeah,
good song.
it makes me wonder if any of the Delmore stuff will include it, since there's supposed to be more of that released. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear kind of what it sounded like in Gary's original output. I like Gary singing on it. It sort of has like that sort of unfiltered Gary song where he can get really, sort of like, I don't know if cartoonish is the right word. It's just a very Gary way to sing things. And even though it's simple, I do kind of like the line, "We went from us to me and you."
Yeah, for sure. And I disagree as far as the Limper part in a big time. I think Gary's voice on that album is just as pristine as ever, and
Yeah.
it shows he never lost it as far as recording. He still had it here. I mean, he was what in his 50s maybe at this point, and I don't really think his voice really. There was a little bit there in the 80s that it was. He would have been turned 50 after this came out, so. I
Yeah.
mean, he sounded awesome in my opinion.
No,
That
I
was
think so
not the
too.
issue in any way.
Originally, before we talked about the three Hightone records, the first time I heard this one, as I was listening to all of them, this one was my favorite. I still like it a lot. I came around to Battleground a lot more, but I think his singing is what works on all three of the records, really. It was never bad.
No, it doesn't fall off. It almost, I would say, kind of gets better in a way. I think the songs on Brand New are the best, but really his voice on this album is just as good as that. Or it sounds like 70s. He loses a little bit of the vibrato as he got older, but outside of that, he doesn't sound any different.
No, I was looking at it was probably just on the Wikipedia page. I was reading up on this album a little bit, and someone said, like, I think it was a review that maybe from a Texan magazine or something that said it was like the best low selling record of 1993, which is kind of a dig at the record, I guess. But I take that to mean like it should have sold more than it did. And like, I did that radio series on my radio show, and I was diving into the 90s, and like there was some good country in 93, but this would have been among the best stuff on the radio, even if it isn't the best Gary Stewart ever made. Like, it's still Gary Stewart, and it was still really good country music.
Yeah, and I'm more so fault High Tone for that, which I don't even that's a fault. They were a small label. They gave Gary a chance, but I think had he had been on a different label, I don't think that would have been an issue.
That's probably true.
Anyways, that takes us to track 7, which is Honky Tonk Hardwood Floor. And this was written by Tex Ashenson and Eddie Hazelwood. And this is one of my favorites from the album, actually. The title says it all, a pure honky tonkin' song. This is one when I first listened to, I immediately went and taught myself how to play it on guitar because it's so fun and catchy and it will get stuck in your head. And the piano, man, I guess that's David Briggs. I don't think it's Gary, but I love this song. It is fun. I mean, obviously it's a cover and the lyrics are nothing like transcendent or anything, but it's just a fun honky tonk song. I would have killed to see this live.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The piano plays a jelly roll. That's the only time we'll talk about jelly roll on this podcast, but um it was yeah, if you wanted folks to get up and raise the roof, and we used to hear about how, like when we had Bob on, Bob was talking about they would have Gary come in, and I mean, Bob didn't just talk about that with us. I feel like we hear that story from a couple times, but when they were playing the honky tonks, Gary would come in and blow the roof off these places everywhere they went. And like, this is totally a song you would play if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to get yourself to the Honky Tonk Hardwood Floor and dance around and scuff it up with your boots, this is the right one.
Yeah, and I'm sure he played this live. I don't have any recollection or information on any that exists, but I have listened to some of Jimmy's tapes. Well, I listened to all of them, and on one of them, I can't remember which one it was. If it's the Graceland one, or a different one, but there is Gary just sitting around playing this on an acoustic guitar. So, and it would have been from before this came out, if I believe. So it may have been a song Gary is familiar with because there is an earlier version of this. I think Eddie Hazelwood maybe did his own, but there's like a 60s version of it. But obviously Gary loved this song, and I imagine he knew it from for a while.
Yeah, it's a fun drinking song on this one. I mean, I guess if you're gonna put Honky Tonk, what is this, the fourth, fifth something song? Probably the fourth song that Gary's had Honky Tonk in the title. But it's good. All of them are mostly good. This ranks up there with all of them, you know.
Well, he was from the Honky Tonks West, or
Yeah, that's right.
the
The king of
king
the
of the
honky
Honky
tonks.
Tonks. Yeah. And that takes us to track 8, Dark End of the Street. And this was written by Chips Moman and Dan Penn. And I know you had sent me text, but I was waiting for us to talk. But this is actually one of my favorite songs ever to exist by anyone. And it was written, Chips Moman was one of Gary's producers there for Cactus and a Rose. And in my opinion, the Flying Burritos Brother version with Graham Parsons is the best. But there is countless versions of this song, and all of them are worth listening to. And I said this song was a layup for Gary and Roy, and they missed it. Um,
Yeah.
Gary's voice should have dominated this song. It comes out very reserved, almost like the most reserved I've ever heard Gary sing. And he does get better as the song goes on and gets into it. And I guess that's Tracy Nelson singing, and she's good on the song. And but I was pretty surprised. I feel like the production it's so dated sounding and not in a good way. It's just something off about this one as well. And I was like, man, this is like if there was a song made for Gary, this would have been perfect. And I don't know how they missed on this one.
No, I'm with you there. Yeah, I know. I just like you, the first thought I had was, man, I wish I was listening to the Flying Burritos Brothers, version of this song because it's one I've heard many times and really enjoy. And um, it's just, can you imagine this in the style of like Harlan County Highway on that Kentucky Access TV? That video of Gary singing that. Like, imagine this song done that way with Gary just on acoustic and belting it out. Like, and I think he would have been totally capable of that still at this time. So, yeah, they just didn't do it justice, which is truly one of the great, like, I don't know, mysteries, I suppose, of the three albums that they did on Hightone. Like, what about this could they not make work considering it was Gary Stewart who was doing it? I don't blame Gary. I mean, it's such a good song, and I am really glad we have a version of Gary doing this song too, but and you're right, the backing vocals are cool. It's a unique sound that we don't necessarily get on a ton of Gary tracks, but I don't know. It is probably one of the better songs I can think of just in terms of the songwriting, and I wish we had more versions of Gary singing it.
Oh, it's a brilliant song, and Dan Penn's still around, and you should listen to his solo stuff. I really like Tear Joint, and but I'll just give a quick read out of Jimmy's book where it says the arrangement with high tone just sort of sputtered out, according to Larry Slovin. Sales decline over the 3 albums. There were a lot of diminishing returns. Gary would never work with Roy Dea again. Dea's last years were rough. Sonny Tackett, who worked with Dea on a solo album, recalled a late night phone call. Roy was really, really drunk. He was angry at Nashville, angry at RCA, angry at Gary. It must have been an hour and a half just ranting and raving. Roy drank and smoked till the end. Day had been in the Marine Reserves, and a big joy at the end of his life was hanging out at the American Legion Club, according to his wife, Dolores. Roy loved all the veterans. They were his heroes. He would hang out down there and buy them drinks. Roy Day died on August 22nd, 1997, 2 days after suffering a heart attack. And so I think that kind of puts in perspective here. Roy is pretty checked out and probably not in the best space. I think he'd kind of given it his all.
Yeah, that's that's sad, honestly, to think about that because Roy and Gary did so much together, and in many ways, I think about those two being intertwined in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously there were some Gary records where Roy wasn't involved, but by and large, through most of their career, that's they were joined up, and sounds like Roy had a bit of a tough end to things, and I'm very thankful for Roy Day because I feel like he was a big champion of Gary before and even after a lot of people had sort of moved on from Gary, it's I don't know. That's an interesting note to tack on to this final record.
Yeah. And I mean, without Roy, there's no Gary. I mean, and I think likewise, I think they were helped each other and made each other's careers. But I think also, two guys dealing with substance abuse, I think it was probably pretty chaotic at times. And yeah, I agree. Roy seemed like a good guy and really championed Gary and wanted to do the best by him for the most part. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's kind of forgotten in time. If you look on the internet, there's literally one photo of him that exists. Like I hardly even know what he looks like, which is bizarre. And
I actually just did that, Josh. You know what's kind of cool? I searched Roy Day and I clicked on a little image link on Google, and one, two, three, four of our posts from the pod come up when you search Roy Day. Um, so because we mentioned that he was producing these records, and but I see the one pick you probably saw as well. It's a Discogs pick, is that right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, that kind of leads us into our next track because we were left there with our pal Sonny Tackett quote there from Kentucky, and that is track 9, "Make It a Double," which was written by Sonny Tackett, and his version is on his Roy Day produced album, which he was kind enough to send to me, and I love his version as well. But Wes, we're back in Mexico, but instead of Acapulco, we're in Mexico City, and there's no whiskey trip this time. We're drinking doubles of tequila, and another one I love. I think Sonny was a great. I mean, I started talking to him. I hope we can get him on the pod. That guy is awesome. He's another Kentuckian, and he wrote some awesome songs and has just like some amazing memories of Gary and just a lot of documents, photos, live recordings. I'm kind of amazed. I don't want to talk too much about, but it's yeah, this song's funny. They pulled the marimba back too for that exotic theme of Mexico.
Yeah,
Roy
Mexico
loved
City.
that.
He did. Yeah, we got another sort of Jimmy Buffett sounding track here, which I actually, I don't know. I wish Gary had done. Maybe that's a bad wish. I don't want to like make the wrong wish here, but if he had done more Jimmy Buffett inspired stuff, I don't know that it would have been bad. You get the marimba on this. Oh, marimba. But yeah, something about being in Mexico City that's a little more sinister. Like it feels like whoever's in this song is up to no good.
Yeah, maybe we can ask Sonny what the inspiration for the song is. Because I would say, this is a great drinking song and it fits Gary perfect. It's kind of for his last album, you get Make It a Double. So it's tying into, she's acting single and it has the theme of whiskey trip as well. I feel like it kind of ties in some loose ends on some of the best Gary songs. And
It could be the same guy in all those songs, really, you
yeah,
know?
you know what I envision as the person from the song that's the same guy in all those songs?
Who's that?
It's Johnny Paycheck on that album cover where he has the Hawaiian shirt on.
Yeah.
That's the character in the song. That's who I would imagine.
That was post prison Johnny Paycheck, right?
I think it was Modern Times that he put that out,
Yeah, that's
like
right.
the
That's
Bob
right.
Dylan one.
Yeah, well, Johnny Paycheck did it first, you know.
Yeah,
Bob
Modern
Dylan borrowed
Times. Yeah, that is 100% the character in the song. He's in a diner. He looks like he's in out of place in his Hawaiian shirt and a cigarette, and he's in trouble.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
running from the law or something.
if you've run away from if you're brokenhearted and you're running from your ex-lover and you're somehow in Mexico City, and I don't think you live there. It seems like an American guy in Mexico City. And I guess you're waking up and to keep going on, to keep living your day, you got to already start it with a double tequila. Yeah, it's you know who could have I've said this a couple of times, but I feel like some of their songs, they're kindred spirits, but this could easily be like a Warren Zevon song too, you know?
Yeah, make it a double because I've got double the pain. The chorus of the song rules. This is a brilliant song, actually. I think it's the one of the standouts on this album, and I don't. I think Jimmy and maybe Sonny mentioned that they thought Gary could have nailed it better. I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah. I actually really liked I listened to this one. There was like a couple of tracks on this album that I went back to after I'd already listened to the whole thing and I wanted to hear them kind of over and over and like I would regularly listen to this single. It's a lot of fun. If it were I don't know why it wasn't necessarily like maybe it was, but it could have been a great single for the song. That and there's one other that I feel that way about too, but
Yeah, I don't know how it wasn't a hit to be honest, but
maybe at the time or just again the label, yeah, because it
yeah.
really feels like it could have been.
Anyways, that takes us to track 10, and this is One Night, written by Dave Bartholomew, Pearl King, and Anita Steinman. And I don't know if you're familiar with this track, but it was, to me, the most disappointing song on the album and shouldn't have really been included. This is one of my favorite Elvis songs. And as I was saying, I've listened to some of those acoustic tapes where Gary would just sit and do like medleys of Elvis on acoustic and just do them as good as Elvis, honestly. Just like knock him out of the park. And same with those Hank Williams songs that he put on the studio albums. It just falls short. His voice is okay, but it sounds like he's trying too hard on it. Like it doesn't even sound like he's being himself. And again, the production's off on this one. The two songs that sound like they could have nailed the 60s, like perfect soul kind of like blue sound. I don't Roy just like, I don't know. It sounds like everyone phoned this one in, which doesn't make sense because I know Gary loved Elvis. And like I said, he could nail it.
It's really odd after the last album, we got that amazing Bobby Darin song that Gary covered and did so well. And we have this cover that, yeah, it just falls flat. I mean, there's not a lot good that I can say about this. I'm not as big an Elvis fan as you, so I wasn't comparing it in that same way, but just like it's kind of slow. It's a really odd track to be the 10th track of the record because it starts to make me lose a little focus, to be honest, as I'm listening to this.
Yeah, this song should have been. Have you heard the Elvis version?
I looked it up after I saw your note, so I have heard it now, but I wasn't familiar before I heard the Gary version. So it's kind of hard though. I mean, it to your point, if Gary was kind of living up to Elvis's style, which was also so like bombastic, he certainly wasn't doing that here.
Yeah, it's just hard to think because obviously, if he did this in a different style of production, I mean, we know Gary did tons and tons of hits with the Jordanaires, just like Elvis, and it just makes you wish and or wonder what could this have been because obviously everything Elvis did was a cover. It could have been awesome with Gary, but we're just left with another song of like, what could that one have been if a different take or something? Like I said, it is one of the frustrations that Jimmy has where I've listened to him, same with Hank Williams, play Elvis songs just sitting in a hotel room on a tape recorder, and it sounds like something no one else has ever imagined, better than anything anyone's ever heard. And you're left with this, and you're just like, why? Where did this direction come? What was Roy must have been blasted on this or something? I don't want to disparage or anything, but not the best production here.
No. And if I think about the way Jimmy has thought about some of these albums in his book and what he shared about them and given to us, like I can understand being frustrated because for a long time, all the world really had outside of, a handful of people who were in the know to understand Gary Stewart would have been his recorded albums and, what was out there and what people had heard. Now we have Jimmy's amazing book and people are, paying more attention to Gary Stewart. And so that's not all that's written and done. But if it had have been, and this was the last thing that he had put, on a record, I can understand the frustration when you know that he was so much more than that.
Yeah, I forget who said something to me recently. It seemed someone that wasn't really in the know and said that seemed like Gary Stewart was really making a resurgence again. It got me excited because people were noticing. But anyways, that takes the track 11, Those Memories, written by Alan O'Brien. And this is the most 90s country sounding track on this record, and it is not a bad tune at all. I love the harmonies with Gary here, and I think it's a really good country tune that honestly could have been another hit in the 90s with the right push. It just has that kind of feel. This one like sounds like 90s neo-traditional country sound, which isn't always my favorite, to be honest. I know that's kind of a re-emergence now in some of the new neo-traditional, but I there's some great stuff from the 90s, and then I put this up there with it. It's kind of an interesting number.
Yeah, it's funny. That sound is going through a sort of resurgence, and yet the people sort of driving that, I mean, I don't know, Zach Top comes to mind. He's been covering Gary Stewart a lot, so even though Gary wasn't lumped in with that crowd, he did have this album that came out in that era, and like this song sort of to me more than anything just shows if he had wanted to make an album like that, he easily could have. Um, and it's not like the most interesting song in the world or anything like that, but it's not bad either. It just doesn't really sound like any other Gary tune. It makes me very curious, like if he had gone in that sort of like I don't know, George Strait, Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, like if he had gone in that sort of style for longer, I think it could have worked.
Yeah, if he had per se signed with a more mainstream label after this, yeah, I would have been curious.
Yeah, this should have been the single, really, if you wanted to get it on the air in 1993.
Yeah. Anyways, that takes the last track, which is track 12, Two More Fools, and written by Jim Hurt and Grant Boatwright. And this sounds like it could have been on Cactus and a Rose, kinda. Gary's voice, I think it's actually pretty great on this song. And like I said, he never lost it on the studio albums, which is a shame since this was released 10 years before he passed and it was his last. And I said overall, it's a pretty bland song, even though Gary sounds great here. There's just not much going on to keep me wanting to listen to it.
No, I don't know that I have much to say about the song. I mean, I think the most remarkable thing about it is that it was the last ever Gary song on a studio album. He didn't know it then, but we know it now. It's kind of a sad song. I heard myself say it's a sad situation. I agree. It does have a cactus and a rose kind of feel. I didn't think about that until you said it. I don't know. There's not much remarkable about this one. It's an odd ending to the record, but makes me feel strange to know that we've arrived to the last one.
Yeah, and in Jimmy's book, it said, after this record, I'd planned on visiting Gary and Mary Lou around this time. I'd just gotten married, and my wife Natalia was a big Gary Stewart fan. I wanted them to meet. Everybody was excited about the trip, and arrangements were made. But Lou called at 2 a.m. and announced Gary said he doesn't want you to come to Florida, then abruptly hung up. The next day, she called back apologizing, and they both got on the line, imploring me to visit. Weary of such shenanigans, I declined. Who knows which Gary I might encounter down there, I thought. We should have gone, as I'd never see him in person again. Although we kept in touch by phone, out of the blue, he'd send me noteless audio tapes in the mail where he'd do Little Cabin Home on the Hill or something equally close to my heart. His packages would be return addressed from either Mike Love or Howard Hughes. Turns out this period was another rough patch with the couple splitting for yet another time. No one can recall just why. Stewart went off to Texas to stay with Joey Floyd, fiddle and banjo player for Toby Keith. Gary had no label, no Lou, and nothing on the horizon. But two wild Texas characters would soon enter the picture to inject new energy into his life on the road, ushering in the last golden period of Gary Stewart's time on Earth. Their names are Terry Porter and James Willingham. So I don't really want to cover anything else, with Gary's life. You need to go read the book, but he is right. Once Terry Porter came in, they got him straightened out. They let him become the king of the honky tonks the rest of his life there in Texas and keep playing him, even though he didn't have a record for 10 years. He really thrived with him, and I'm glad he found them, even though the end was pretty dark. But he at least had those guys that kind of helped keep him straight there. And yeah, it's sad. I'm curious what will come of it because there was other recordings in the 90s. I've seen a studio stuff. There's some stuff that's floating out there that you can find and cover of Wild Horses even. But I know there's stuff that he recorded that's never fully come into light, and I don't want this to be the end. I want us to keep going. I hope we can talk to Sonny and maybe Mark Lynn to talk more about the albums he's putting out to keep this stuff alive. And we're just gonna keep finding stuff. So it's gonna keep coming to light because, like I said, there is a resurgence. Gary's not here with us physically, but he feels like he is spiritually, and it's just taking on a new meaning for me. And you know, uh, tomorrow's the anniversary of one of our other heroes passing in a similar light, and I just want to keep these people alive. They mean a lot, and I can't understand the pain and suffering that they went through. And Gary, yeah, he left us with so much special magic and music, and I want to remember that and keep his spirit alive because he deserves that.
I feel the same way in so many ways that it's a special time to be talking about Gary. Like this podcast really came out of in the beginning, Josh and I talking about Gary Stewart, and we were going to start off with it, and then we had kind of caught rumblings that Jimmy's book was coming out, and then we wanted to sort of start talking about it after we had read that. And that's how we got to this series. And I don't know that we'll even do this for many other artists. There's not many that are worthy of this much focus and attention, but
No,
Gary is. And yeah, it's like I just think back on Josh when you and I started this series. Like I gotta think. We got to talk to Boogie Bob Melton. Bob was amazing and told us some stories that I'll probably think about the rest of my life, to be honest. And so thankful that Jimmy McDonough wrote this book. Like I think you and I both, Josh, read Shaky, and Shaky was cool, but this was a whole different thing. Like this is a masterpiece of a book, truth be told. So if you want to understand Gary, or even if you just want to read really one of the best like music bios like that you could ever read, I don't know. It's just such a well written and well documented book. So it's awesome that we got to follow along with that too.
I can't tell you. 3 months ago when we started this, we'd be having a book on Gary Stewart, which we found about no information on, to finding hidden stuff, talking to Sonny, we talked to Mark, we talked to Boogie Bob, sort of talked to Shannon. I mean, we got stuff coming out on streaming. We've had a new Gary album. We had a full page colored write up in the New York Times. I mean,
Yeah.
good God, man. I never thought it's just starting, buddy. And I know we're not related, but I think all Kentuckians feel like a special kindred bloodhood. And just because I think Kentuckians are people that feel like they've gone through a lot and are resilient people. And there's just some sort of special bond. And I think he was the greatest musician I've ever heard. And I want other
Yeah.
people to hear that. And I think when they do that, I've never heard anyone, no matter what they listen to, I've not shown someone Gary Stewart and say, yeah, that's all right. I don't, every person I've ever shown Gary Stewart, if they listen to country or not, go, man, That guy can sing. And I really do believe that's the power of music in someone like Gary. They transcend time and genre and everything. Like, I don't really know what else to say. And I think he's going to transcend this. And yeah, like you said, he's the reason we started this, and we're going to keep going. And I don't think this is the end of the story of Gary Stewart.
No, he's still not in the Country Music Hall of Fame, which is a damn shame. I'm thinking that's going to change. I really do. There's enough people raising their voice about that. It's not everything. Some of those things can feel cheesy, but I did go visit it. I got to see another part of this series. I got to go see Jimmy and Shannon and Terry and Bob all talk about this. And I mean, that place is cool, and it's a nice honor to people who meant a lot to country music to see the things, the instruments they played, and to see sort of their plaques and other things. And it's just indefensible that Gary Stewart's face isn't sitting there on that wall, and his some memorabilia of his isn't in there. Because if ever somebody deserved to be there or any Hall of Fame, it's Gary Stewart.
Yeah, I agree. They have the funding there to preserve a lot of special stuff, and some of the people that have been inducted in there, I don't agree with in any sort of way and shouldn't be. And some of the people they champion are not country, and that's whatever. But I mean, it's a supposed country music hall of fame without Gary in there. It's kind of a joke, if I'm being honest. But a lot of stuff about Gary's exists, and the more you have funds and access to it, it would be preserved because a lot of this is out there if you know where to look and how to find it. I know his guitars are still on there. There's a lot of stuff of Gary's that is out there and more live tapes, and I think people will realize it'll keep coming out. So yeah, I'm not going to even call that or consider it a country music hall of fame until Gary gets in there. So you guys better do your part and cowboy up, put the king of the honky tonks in there. Even George Strait said that, but who's going to fill their shoes? Definitely no one's going to fill Gary Stewart's. And this is signing off.
Adios and cheers to Gary Stewart.
Adios.